and excited to welcome everyone to the session on virtual mentoring. Have a lot of people that are registered and know it's a really important topic, so I'm going to get right to it, and I'm going to hand it over to Tricia, Matt, and Jose, and you guys can take it away.
All right, Matt's going to introduce us here, but I'm going to share my screen and hope I can do this correctly.
Yeah, so while Tricia sets up the screen, peace everybody, and good morning. Thank you all for being here. I do have to say it's been incredible for a day to be back, and man, I have this is the most I've felt like I was actually in the space with the virtual thing, which is trippy. Yeah, I was pumped up yesterday. So to start off, this is actually Jose's reminder to us that this is not a workshop about mental wellness per se, but I guess it's impossible to separate these things from each other these days. And so what we have on the screen here, I actually stole this from my son's teacher, who's incredible. If you are ever in Arizona, you meet someone named Bree Spatafor, shake her daggone hand. Yeah, these days, like I used to watch Sports Center to see people like do alley-oops and punt returns and stuff. Now I just like go behind my kids and my partner's Zoom screens and go, oh, that's a nice move. I hear like, Jaden, stop putting pentagrams on the screen. And I'll be like, But then I hear somebody go, oh, I see that Jaden has brought in a new example of radial symmetry. And I'm like, dang, good move. So anyway, we stole this from Ms. Bree Spatafor. And when they start their Zoom calls every morning, she shows them this tree of little blob characters, and everyone checks in by putting in the chat which of these blob characters speaks to the mood that you're feeling right now. And we wanted to take a minute because when we're connecting with our kids on here and anything that we're doing in this current time, like Jose said, it's really important for us to kind of check in with ourselves first and see where we sit. So if you take a look at this tree, doesn't require any interpretation from me. Just take a look and see which one of these little blobs speaks to the way you're feeling this morning. And if you can, just put it in the chat. I'll give you guys all a moment or two. Jen is a 19. Looks like 19's got somebody's back, yeah. I have one of the participants from this class sitting next to me right now. Apparently he doesn't want to speak out loud. Aviva's a 6. I like that the 2 that I looked at first are reaching out for somebody else. 11. Christine, where is he? A number 9. Where's 11? Yeah, there's 15. Gabe is a 9. Where's 9? Oh yeah, nice. I like that. I like the number 9 pick. This dude who's fashioned himself a swing out of a stick he found on the ground. That's that Clubhouse vibe. Nice. And yeah, I won't take up too much more time from it. I mean, it's cool. Oh, nice. Jordan, we got another stick swinger with the number 9. If you can keep going with this too and kind of keep it in mind. It's beautiful when we see those moments when we feel like swinging from the stick. I've had a couple moments where I felt like a 14 out here over these past times, but I think one of the biggest reflections that I've got as I kind of like looked over the shoulder of my son Teo and watched him do this and thought to myself what number I am is that it changes, you know? And there've been a lot of wise maxims over the times. One of them is this too shall pass. What the King Solomon's ring said when his wise sage told him, look at it when you're sad or when you're happy, and remember that there'll be another blob tree tomorrow. So yeah, I'll pass it to Tricia. If you haven't, feel free to keep contemplating your blob positioning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. So Thanks everyone for joining us today. I don't know if Lynn is on the call or not, but I have to tell her that I had a dream that she was disappointed in me because I couldn't get my camera to work. Because it was like made of paper. I couldn't work it out. So anyway, hopefully we're all hanging in there this morning. So thanks for joining our session. So I just wanted to share a little bit before we dive into some of the things we want to talk about, and just share a little bit about how we, Matt and Jose and I kind of came together to talk about this topic. You know, I've had the pleasure of working closely with Jose through Project Impacts over the last few years. And so I knew a little bit about at least what he was experiencing out in California at his space. Matt and I go way back. He was a coordinator here with us in Charlottesville, and we stay in touch. And so I knew what Matt was facing there. And it seemed really clear that we were all sort of in these, had a lot of overlapping challenges that I think a lot of us will share today that we've experienced collectively. But our clubhouses, our organizations were pretty unique in that, you know, Jose is out in this big metro area. I'm in a relatively small city. Matt is out in the middle of nowhere. I think you said literal tumbleweeds roll past your house regularly. And we also have different organizations in terms of our governing structures. And so that kind of impacted, not kind of, it directly impacted how we could interact with our members during this time. And so, you know, for example, C4K, we're a small nonprofit, and we have a lot of flexibility because we don't have a bigger parent organization that has some strict guidelines for us in terms of how we could interact with members. And then, you know, Matt on the other extreme couldn't have any real direct interaction with his members. So, and then Jose, you know, was able to have this wider sort of community impact. So we'll each sort of share our individual perspectives on how we've engaged with virtual mentoring. And I think that hopefully everyone on this call is going to find a space where you find some similarities with your program. And we also want to make sure that we're learning from you as well. We're going to bring out some of the things that worked for us, and but we also think it's important for us to learn from each other. So there is going to be some breakout room time for us to have some conversations. And we, of course, want to come back and share what we've chatted about. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jose, and I'm going to share my screen again.
All right, how y'all doing? I hope you all can hear me all right. I'm doing the remote thing too, Gustavo, so if it gets cut, it's because I'm remote. But again, we did a lot of what we used to do then, and then what we have to do now. So for example, I'm at the Eden Computer Clubhouse and at the Eden Youth and Family Center in Hayward, California. So when we got the mentoring grant, we started working a lot with college students, and that drove us to have a big community impact through community development. So it all started with making partnership with fraternities, sororities, because we have a lot of universities around our clubhouse. So I just show a couple of pictures of what was going on. It's fine. Of like what we really started developing here, which is community through mentorship. So one thing that worked out really well for us and for our community was community events. So working with council members, we have community members there. If you look at the last pictures right there, it was like a big highlight for us to do the Dia de los Muertos, where we have the whole block doing, I don't know if you all know about El Caballo Dorado, but to have that kind of community involvement and celebration at some point, because we built this technically from scratch because of mentoring, was kind of like the highlight of what we have done so far with the mentoring program at Eden Youth and Family Center. So once COVID hit, we no longer had this safe space, this community events, and we had to adjust. Like everyone else, we had to adjust. The first thing we started doing was the mentoring went from one-on-ones inside the clubhouse to who needs help and how can we help them individually. So it was an individual-based mentoring. That worked out fine for us. Obviously, we had a lot of challenges with that. We started doing movies together, try to do the virtual help with homework, help with projects. But the main thing that got impacted for us was our community events because we were in a larger area. It took us a while to finally get permission to do something, but one of the things that we ended up doing was we used to have this backpack drive where we used to do a block party and our community would come and get a backpack. So instead of doing that, since students were no longer going to school, they didn't really need backpacks. So instead we did supplies that they can get from, that they can use for virtual learning. And then instead of doing a community event, we did a drive-through event where with safe distancing, we would just drop off the bag inside their trunks. So that's just one example of one of the things we did as far as our community events. And that worked out really well for us because we had over 100 families drive through our parking lot and we were able to deliver the same services in a COVID environment. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jose. So I forgot to mention that through our conversations and talking about virtual mentoring and some of the lessons that we learned, we really realized, the three of us, that we kept framing things in this sort of like then and now space. And where we sort of landed was we looked at what was essential in our programming, what was essential to our clubhouses that kind of made up the character of it, and how can we hold on to those things in this virtual space. And then, how did we adapt? And so like Jose shared, those big community engagement events are so much a part of the fabric of their clubhouse and their community that they had to find a way to make that happen again. And so similarly, I'll share my screen. We, of course, put together some images for C4K. We're in Charlottesville, Virginia, relatively small organization. We not only have our clubhouse space, which, is all about collaboration and group mentoring, but we also have some one-to-one mentoring connections that we make. And so we had to also find ways to adapt that. And I'll talk a little bit more later on in the presentation about some ways that we were able to reconnect members, in terms of like platforms, how did we, address security concerns, things like that. But just to give a little bit of background on some ways that we adapted. We'll also, hopefully, Brendan will be able to get folks' email addresses, and anyone that would like to have links to some of these things, we'll share them out with you. One way that we adapted is, we celebrating members and celebrating their projects and the things that they do is really a critical part to all of our programs. But C4K, our project showcase, is always such an amazing event and opportunity for us. And of course, we couldn't do that this year. So thanks to our dear friend Gustavo. I will say, listed in some of the resources that we want to focus on is this group. The community that we have here at the Clubhouse Network, just drawing on each other and our collective experiences, and I think really helped us adapt a lot. And so, like Gus introduced us to CoSpaces. I'll share a link to it. We were able to do a virtual project showcase, and actually show the members' projects, recorded their voices, the voices of our mentors there. So it was as close to that sort of experience as we could possibly recreate in this space. So we continue to engage members, and I put these pictures on here just because I think we all miss seeing everyone's smiling faces together. So, but there's some images here on ways that we adapted. Some of the things that we were able to do were sort of hybrid, where members would be in a real life space with us, and mentors might be virtual. And so, we did the best that we could to try to keep everyone connected directly, and mentors were a big part of that. Making sure that we could keep them engaging with our members. And when we think about what our clubhouse culture is, one thing that we talk a lot about at C4K is, and it's not unique to us, it's across the network, but that we're not school, we're a space where it's driven by the youth, and that is really important. And we talked a lot about early COVID, like how do we support the members, and should we focus like exclusively on academic support. And through our conversations, we realized like, no, this is a space where members come because they want to, and they work on the things they want to work on. And we realized that maintaining that element of our programming was really a form of care for our members and for our mentors. And so we used the virtual mentoring as a way to keep our members connected to a community that cares for them. And for our mentors, we found that it was also a space for self-care for them as well. So maybe I'm sort of touting the benefits of virtual mentoring here, and keeping everyone connected. I will say this probably a million times. It's no substitute for our real life interactions, but it was the best we could do, I think, to keep everyone connected. So again, I'll share a little bit more about platforms and things that we used in the mentoring, but I want to turn it over to Matt to talk a little bit about his Clubhouse.
Yeah, thanks, Tricia. So yeah, so like Tricia has said, I think part of the purpose of our share out right now is that when we were talking initially, we started to realize these kind of like distinct angles that we all shared, and hoping that one of these categories are one of like the situations that you guys will find yourself in for further discussions, and then also yeah, maybe identifying what other lanes there are. But my Clubhouse is in Sacaton, Arizona, which is on the Gila River Native Reservation, or Gila River Indian Community, as it's called inside the community, which is just south of Phoenix. And yeah, like Tricia said, Jose is in a larger metro area. Tricia is in a smaller city. My Clubhouse is, if you get a glimpse of this picture on the left-hand side with this little lady out here in the desert, that's what it looks like out here. So yeah, so we're not only are we kind of in a rural place, but we are being on the reservation. We're in kind of our own little world, geographically and a lot of other ways as well. And so that's unique to the way that we structure ourselves at the Clubhouse. But also I worked for C4K, where it's a small organization where we did what we wanted and what we felt was best, and we made new policies on the moment. Now as I moved out here, I connected with this Clubhouse, which is part of the Boys and Girls Club. And a huge difference in that is the kind of bureaucracy that goes into that. And I will say that when I began, it was with a Boys and Girls Club that embodied clubs in the East Valley of Phoenix, and then the metropolitan Phoenix merged together to create one of the largest Boys and Girls Club organizations in the country. And my club, being from the Gila River Indian Community, or BRIC as they call it, was funded through the tribe, and went through a process in my first year of working there of breaking away to be one of the few Boys and Girls Clubs that are self-governed by an indigenous community. So now we went from being this largest organization to one of the smallest Boys and Girls Club conglomerates. But that said, we still have this kind of like bureaucracy of guidelines that revolve around that. So our experiences with mentoring and accessing our youth during the pandemic began with this huge organization where somebody had messed up somewhere along the line, and a policy got sent out to everybody. And there's the policy for the larger organization was that there is no social media contact whatsoever with youth. And so we couldn't have any two-way communication with our youth virtually. And at the time, that was the Zoom and these other things were kind of falling under that umbrella. And so we began with having to figure out how to have some kind of interaction with our youth to support them in whatever way we could. And I'll pause for a moment to say, I know a lot of us will, when we go into the breakout discussions, have individual needs for the communities that we work with. In our community in Sacaton, there's a suicide is a major risk and a constant consideration for the youth that we work with. And so you can imagine being immediately separated when, of all the learning and engineering and the incredible things that we do every day, one of the biggest things that we do is a pat on the shoulder, is like a know that you're there and somebody cares. And and supports you, and, you know what I mean, the smiles and the laughs and the things like that, that just kind of like bring a little boost of joy to somebody's day, you know, when you might be at risk in that way. And so all I have to say is our experience with accessing the youth for a great period until we come to the point now where we've actually entered into some virtual programming, and we've been closed for for over a year now, physically closed to members. So yeah, we started trying to figure out ways to do these one-way communications, of just doing a little video of me burning toast in my you know, my kitchen and going, hey, man, I'm trying to figure out how to cook some new stuff. What are you guys up to? And then it evolved a little bit more and more into like the question was the then and the now. You know, like we had a haunted house thing that we would do, and you could, you know, like engineer this haunted house and bring all of these different things into it. That's kind of one of our rituals of the then. We had to figure out how to do that in the now. And so we figured out a way to use YouTube to make like a choose your own adventure haunted house. And the staff filmed a little movie and tried to make it as possible for the youth to interact with by making this like click on which way to go with the extra video at the end and this kind of thing. And then, yeah, and then that's kind of even evolved into us trying to work to build what Tricia was showing in their virtual showcase using CoSpaces and other platforms, which of course Gus is helping me with, to try to make a virtual space where you can come and interact. And to the final things, which we've done is, if they're zoomed out and they're fatigued, we started creating YouTube videos of tutorials, because they don't ever seem to get tired of that, and making little supply packs and just distributing them hand to hand in the community with guidelines. So yeah, all of that to say that we kind of identified transitioning on that Jose had a scenario where they had a lot of community resources that they provided, and they had to figure out how to convert that then into what that looks like now. Tricia in the C4K does a lot of one-on-one mentoring. I had to convert that from then into what that would look like now. And for myself, you know, everything from the haunted house to just a single interaction with a member, we had to take that from then to now. So what we'd like to do, taking a breath from that, we knew that this wasn't going to be a kind of workshop where we were like yesterday Galen mastered flip clip and taught us how to do it. We wanted to make this session like hold the place in that space of like when we all go out after the conference, or these conversations that happen within, where not so much that we are relaying information, but that this is one of those beautiful Clubhouse things where we can kind of like create the premise for our conversation. So those share outs from Tricia, Jose, and I were meant to kind of like break down the then and the now for us. And from that, we've learned a lot of different things about what is our mission, what things were essential that we had to modify, which things fell away, you know, when we couldn't do them, and which things bubbled to the surface. So based on that premise of the then and the now, what we would like to do is we'd like to break you all into smaller breakout rooms. We're going to have larger group conversations around these kind of like 3 pillar categories, but we decided you probably will accomplish more and have maybe more robust conversation in smaller groups. So Brendan is going to break you guys out into small group conversations. And based on that idea of what did your mentoring and your interaction with youth look like pre-pandemic, what does it look like now? And what have those changes meant to you? A couple prompts for that conversation is, you know, one of the things that came out of Tricia, Jose, and I's conversation is like these particular challenges that kind of had to give us pivot and work around. If you guys can share some of those challenges with each other, what you did to meet them, and then that idea of like what reflections came out of that. And we're hoping that from those conversations, we'll get some really meaty specifics as to what you amazing folks were able to do, and share those with each other. And of course, the conversation has to always contain within it how we felt while we went through that, and how we cared for ourselves as that process went on. So we're gonna copy and paste these little prompts into the chat. So you guys have them. When you break into the breakout rooms, we would like to ask one person from each group at least to volunteer to kind of record some notes and share back. when you come back. And then when we come back from these breakout rooms, we're going to take a minute to try to harvest out whatever kind of jewels that we can get from those conversations. And honestly, folks, this is the heart of this workshop, is what we're going to get from each other in this. So yeah, so please take some good notes and bring it back to us. We will pop in and out of the breakout rooms, and we'll be back here in the waiting room if folks have troubles. So yeah, unless Jose or Tricia, you have anything else to add to that? No? Okay. Yeah, Brendan,
Okay.
whenever you're ready. Hi, Jose. Did you just vault the chair, Jose?
It's my mom. She wanted like. My mom was like, "Pass me that thing." I was like, "Oh shit!"
Did a backflip back into the chair.
I'll head back.
Yeah, 59 seconds. Yeah, leave now. What's up, Gabe? You just pop back up on the front.
Nice.
Facial hair is looking regal as always.
You're an inspiration, my friend. Don't cut yourself short.
No, you. How you been, brother?
Can't complain. Really enjoying this session so far.
Right on, man.
The conversation.
Yeah, the conversation, the ongoing conversation.
Just waiting for everyone to come back, but
Yeah, it looks like it's starting to flood in.
I think you should have everyone back.
everyone. Cool. All right. So obviously the next part is going to be about sharing our breakout rooms. So please hop right in. I'll put it on the chat. You're welcome to answer on the chat. But the question is simple. What were some takeaways from the breakout conversations that we had? So if anyone wants to hop in, go ahead.
One thing I'll just throw out really quick that I was appreciative that we kind of touched on is just really the fact that there has been a lot of understanding. I want to say, like, I don't know if we've all had that fortune, but I think there's been a lot of understanding between mentors, between youth. Like I was telling Asher, like we've all known our job in a certain way for some of us for a very long time. So it's hard for us to say like, oh, there's curveballs or things that I don't anticipate. You feel or at least I would feel very comfortable with my day-to-day, and whatever happens. But this was such a game changer in every conceivable way, where it feels like 90% of what I do or know as a coordinator is now just out the window, because a lot of what we do is that face-to-face. So being able to do tech, being able to connect with you through a screen is such an alien and weird feeling. And I feel like I was just very lucky that a lot of my constituents, a lot of my mentors, they were very acutely aware of how much of a pivot that really was for the Clubhouse, for programming. And there was just a lot of forgiveness, a lot of understanding, a lot of leeway. So I think that one of the, I always talk about the bank model, where you kind of make deposits with your youth, good faith investments, so that when things kind of go sideways, you can kind of make a withdrawal from that. So I think that this was kind of like our withdrawal phase, where everyone knows, Gabe, you run program a certain way, you're always on top, This time you can breathe, we'll figure things out. And there's just a lot more, in a weird way, a lot more collaborativeness in figuring out how to keep the program running, and a lot more just relaxation of like, we'll get there, we'll figure things out, and eventually we'll get back to where we are and who we actually are. So again, that was just a really nice feeling to like identify and know that we can all kind of get through it in that way.
That's good.
Right on.
But what thing that came up on the chat was talking about many of the mentors not being interested in virtual mentoring. Did anyone else experience that, or was it the other way around for everyone else? That's just a question for everyone.
I'll speak to that. Yeah, I'll speak to that. This is Ty. I'm sorry, my camera is not working, but on this computer. But yeah, it's interesting to see so many people struggling with the virtual program part, and I get it because the kids are on it all day at school, and so it's very challenging. But Expo Center has had a really good time with that. I mean, I think obviously our participation has decreased. You know, we don't see as many people as we did in person, but we have people showing up every day. You know, in the summer we did it Monday through Friday. That was really successful. And then once the kids started going to school, we asked them what would work for them because we want to hear them. They told us 3 days a week, and they told us to cut it down to 1.5 hours instead of 2 hours. So we're not taking a great big chunk of their time. We're just going 1.5 hours, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we've been able to create some things. I was just saying that we have a TV and film program we just opened up, and on Wednesdays, we did that for about 8 weeks, and they created a PSAs, and I'll share that across, but they filmed on their phones, went through the editing process and all this stuff, and literally did 5 PSAs, and they're just amazing to see what was on their mind. So for us, it's been good. And the mentor side has been also effective because for us, it just took away, we're in LA, and so LA, everything is so far. And so some of the mentors used to have a hard time getting to Expo Center, and this gave them an opportunity to get involved without having to drive so far. So it's been positive for us, but I'm sad to hear it's hard for other people, but it's good to hear too that, you know, we're not all in the same boat. So thank you guys for sharing.
Anyone else have any other examples of like ways to engage, like anything that was really successful, like workshops, YouTube videos, anything else? You all can put it into the chat box if you want to, or you can share.
I want to echo a little bit of what Ty was saying too, because I think that for us, it was a little bit of it's both challenges and pros and cons, but we did have some positive in that we got we're able to recruit new mentors who we've never met in person, and they've been great. At least these digital mentors that we call them have been phenomenal, and they've been on the platform that we created, Discord, has been very helpful for us. So we were doing a lot of this Zoom meeting. It wasn't working as well afterwards. So we went into Discord, which now we have activity at all moments of the day, right? There's activity in the weekends, in the middle of the night. So it's taken on a life of its own. But that's the success that we've had at our Clubhouse, our Discord server.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to multitask as we're having the meeting. But as I was saying in my breakout group, one of the things that, by the way, I'm Mr. Starks. I'm from the Best Buy Teen Tech Center. I was just hired like 2 weeks ago. So I haven't been here as long as everybody else, but I'm coming in with a different type of energy. One of the things that I've actually been focused on with my teams is trying to meet them where they're at. A lot of the services and programs that I'm coming and I'm attempting to create, one of the things that is like the biggest project that is going to be coming from FBR is called FBR Live. As I was expressing to my group, it's going to be like a 106 in Park type of atmosphere where I have 2 of the youth as the hosts. The rest of the youth will be playing as, camera guys and things of that nature. And then from that point on, they will get access from our Instagram page, and we're going to create a Twitch page. The hardest part, as you said, is having the youth sit in front of a computer after they sit in front of a computer all day. But if you have the youth talking to the youth, that makes this process a lot easier. So we're going to be having youth come on that are doing music within the city, city council people talking about football games that they have, because like sports is still going on, basketball is still going on. So those things that they love, that they have a passion for, we're going to be creating a system that does that. And you'll get to see the youth from Best Buy Teen Tech Center hosting, directing, doing editing. We got skits that we're getting ready to make for the show and everything. And a lot of the youth are very, very excited about it because it's their own project. It's something that they're giving back. I think at this point in time, the easiest way for us to connect is just finding things that they are on. You have a lot of gamers right now, and Twitch is huge. Twitch is huge. It's their space. So
Yes.
what I'm looking at is doing things that we can actually attack their space instead of trying to bring them to us. Why not go to them? We know where they at. That's the hard part. Like, you know, we got to find ways to just make them more interested in what we're doing. So I looked at it as, and I tell my teams every day since I've been here, I'm not here to control anything. Every program that I'm creating is programs that I want y'all to direct, control, all of those things. Only thing that I'm here to do is to tell you the limitations and how far we can go with it. That's it. But as far as the work, everything that we're doing is going to be all controlled by you, and they love it. So the only thing that I'm doing is giving them the space, and any equipment that they ask me for, making sure that they have that equipment, making sure that they're happy when they come to it, and creating an atmosphere where they feel like, oh, this is ours, because that pride comes from them. The show starts off, is going to be 1 hour. They're already ready to start recording for 2 hours. I was shorting myself. I said, let's do it for an hour. They want to. So, and if you already have an Instagram page, your numbers is already there. So once you start going live on your Instagram page and they see them on the Instagram page, your numbers will pick up immediately, because now they're in their own space. They're in their own comfort zone. Zoom calls is for adults. Let's be honest. We don't even like being on Zoom calls. Like, we don't even like, so they don't want to sit and basically be seen all day on the screen. That's just not a comfort zone for them. But if I can be on Instagram and I can join in by video and things of that nature, now they got more control over the space that they're in. So that's what that's my direction, and that's how I've been playing.
Yeah, Mr. Starks, thanks so much for sharing that. I think you hit on a really key point that, you know, adapting in ways that respond to the members. And I think that's the Clubhouse culture. You know, it's that we want it to feel like it's their space, and then meeting them where they are. And I know Ty touched on this a little bit, even asking the members, like, well, what do you want to do? When do you want to meet? You know, those kinds of things. I know Matt, we came up in our conversations when Matt was trying to think of ways that you could sort of recreate that haunted house experience. You know, Zoom fatigue is real. We all feel it, but the kids will scroll through the YouTube for a while, long after they've gotten off the Zoom. And so, you know, being able to kind of like harness that energy and using these other platforms, I think has been really helpful to us. Carlos, Jose, sorry, what are some of the other questions we had?
Oh, so I was going to lead into, we're going virtual, how did we address security concerns? So you just talk about creating spaces. So if anyone wants to share the security concerns on how they addressed it.
Hey, Carlos, this is Bill again from Listo America. And let me add, to answer your question and also a couple of suggestions, let me add what I want to add to what Gustavo said. When we started, you know, we obviously, like everybody else, had to go virtual, what we call Listo America remotely. And I mean, it was like a shock, but we decided we're going to do it and we're going to do it right. We were lucky that we had a small grant from the University of California, Irvine, who was in an in-person, what we call brick and mortar program at the Clubhouse. And we were able to change that grant so that it would cover and give us some help in the virtual world. And after some experimentation with Zoom and so on, we decided that we wanted to establish 3 criteria. 1, accessibility for the members, because some of them in underserved communities don't have all the equipment and so on. Number 2, they would have to be engaging, so that's interest-based. And thirdly, it had to be a robust technology, so that it's not breaking down all the time. Using that as a criteria, we finally ended up with Discord as a platform. And Discord has been used primarily in the gaming industry. And Discord gave us a method that when we opened our doors, let's say from 2 to 7, you know, on a typical day, we would be open, but the Discord would give you many different, what I refer to as channels of opportunity. So if you're interested in building stuff, you would go to a channel that may have an activity like that. And members who are interested in that activity would say at 2:30 on Thursday, we're going to meet on the subject of whatever. So yes, those members would go there. somebody else would be interested in music. So you'd go to the music channel, that kind of thing. And what it evolved is that the members were taking over their particular channels, and mentors would then be attached to some of the channel. If you have a mentor that's expert in graphics, he or she would show up to an activity at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, and those interested would just show up to that activity. And as Gustavo mentioned, it started to become a round the clock activity. So you could start now opening the Clubhouse almost 24/7. And it really is working. Our membership is large, bigger than we've ever had. We're used to have, 20 kids, 15 kids. In some cases, we have 52, 60 kids at all one time. And they're living, as I guess Tricia has said, to the spirit of the Clubhouse. We wanted to keep it interest-based and yet have a technology that's engaging. Let me just add one little other thing. The Clubhouse physically became more of a pickup point. If we had an activity that needed a certain piece of equipment, all they would do is set up an appointment and go to the Clubhouse, not to stay there because all the protocols right now with COVID. They would literally pick up that piece of equipment so that they could have hands-on when they do their activity remotely. Or like the Bose headset program, where we had like 20 headsets. In some cases, we even express some headsets to the people so they can work on it together. So that's just some thoughts how we're dealing with the challenge, trying to keep the spirit of the Clubhouse.
All right. So we have 5 minutes remaining. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Bill. I think we all had similar challenges. I kind of wanted to lead it into Matt ending this Zoom call with an important question that I think it came across, and as we were having discussions, was how did we take care of ourselves as mentor coordinators or coordinators. I think that was very important during this whole transition. Again, we can share in the chat, and then I'll just leave it with Matt. Again, this can be an ongoing conversation. Usually we will go in after the conference somewhere else to continue this conversation. But again, thank you all for sharing. And then you all have our emails, and this is a conversation that we could keep having. So Matt.
Yeah, and I know Tricia, you'll have some resources to share too. Thanks, Jose, and everybody. Shoot, yeah, trying to pack this into these quick little moments that we have. Yeah, if we were in conference, I know this is the type of conversation that leads throughout the entire conference. So many different little incredible things in there. I did notice in the chat too, a couple of things about Leon talking about like gamifying the activities, and Ty talking about incentivizing them. And then the 106 at Park. Do they know what 106 at Park is? These kids do their history over there.
I know, right?
It's beautiful and amazing. And before Tricia gives us a couple of quick resources, I just want us to take this moment, and as we kind of like began with this check-in of ourselves, also to say, we got back at C4K, we had a mentor that was one of the most solid brothers that would come through and do films with the kid. That was a film director, an actor, and producer, this dude who did other stuff for himself and kind of like came up in the ranks. And he told one of the kids when he made his first movie, and we kind of like did our little, called it the ice cream shot instead of the champagne shot. But like we closed the movie, and our mentor Mark came in and he told him that the first time he went on stage and he got this huge ovation and crushed it from performing in front of people for the first time. His teacher took him in the back and put his arm around his shoulder and was like, "Hey, Mark, take that feather and put it in your hat." And there's a lot of different ways to say that, but that blob tree and all of that, like, we're going to keep changing the way that we feel throughout this. But man, we've been rocking this for over a year, and each one of us that's here, from all of these different things in the chat to all the different parts in this conversation that happened and that will continue, no matter how you cut, how people like us have spent the last year, take that daggone feather and put it in your hat. you know, however you're feeling right now, I feel like the conversation that we had as we were kind of like coming together and planning this. One thing, it felt good to hear that we were all stumbling and feeling along the way as me and Jose and Tricia were talking. And it felt cool to hear our comrades and our colleagues, you know, telling of these successes and looking at our own and spinning it every way that you can. The feeling that I come out of this with is pride for myself and for being part of this community with y'all. So yeah, man, put that feather in your hat, everybody. And we wanted to be sure to close with that sentiment, because we certainly all do deserve it. Tricia, I know if you want to run down a couple of the resources, we got 1 minute closing out.
I think what we can do is I can make the slides available. There's links in all of our slides. There's things like, you know, if you're, I think this is a US based thing, but you can request technical assistance through the National Mentoring Resource Center. If there's anything specific to your programming, especially as it relates to like policies, procedures, safety concerns, things like that, you can ask for some technical assistance and have a, you know, a consultant kind of look at your policies and procedures to see if you're in alignment with some best practices. And then Mentor, of course, put out an e-mentoring supplement that gave lots of key points that you might want to be thinking about as you're framing what virtual mentoring looks like going forward. I think we all know that this pandemic is still with us. And even when it's over, we've learned that virtual mentoring is a way to eliminate some barriers for young people to participate. And so we want to embrace some of these changes that we've been able to make, some of these resources that we've come in contact with. They're going to be useful as we continue, you know, and so so we want to make sure that we can continue to use those. And then some social emotional, you know, check-ins for yourselves and for your members. I've got some links that we can share out for that as well. But I think we can end it on that note of like, everyone is working so hard. Everyone has done an amazing job this last year to support your members and your mentors and your colleagues. And we are grateful to be part of this community. And it really does, this is a different call. We've decided, you know, we've talked about that this is a different kind of feeling than all of the other virtual conferences we've been a part of or webinars we've been on. I think this community of support and care that we all, I think, share here, we feel it, and we hope that you all do too. So please stay in touch and let's keep the conversation going.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.